Ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be taking a look at the Egyptian Economic Conference 2022, Egypt 2022, that concluded its activities today. It was a three-day conference that was attended by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi during the opening and the closing sessions as well. We're going to be looking at what's been discussed during the conference and the outcomes that the Egyptian economy hopes for as a result. Also ahead of the COP27 due to start very early next month. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the main stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who attended the closing session of the Economic Conference Egypt 2022 today. He said the state is committed to implement the recommendations of Egypt Economic Conference Egypt 2022. The head of state said state institutions must intensify efforts to back the government programs. Sisi also said the aim from holding the national dialogue was to be comprehensive in regards to issues and parties. Sisi also said that he regards himself as a person who was asked to intervene to protect his nation and that the army is part of the state's executive body. He said there is a need for the dialogue platforms to operate in all files, adding that 7 years in the path of a country is not long. He said media content needed for the next 20 years is to serve the idea and unify efforts. There is also a need to unify the culture of dealing with current status. He said the private sector is invited to take part in proposed projects, adding that the state and armed forces companies are all up for it. Sisi said overpopulation is an old problem in Egypt that has not been solved so far. He also added that the public and state efforts must be mobilized to achieve development. The third and the last day of the economic conference witnessed holding a session dubbed a roadmap to develop the industrial sector. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli attended the session. He said the state is ready to provide all incentives and ease measures to make all the needed resources available for the industry sector. He said 135 pieces of land have been allocated to investment projects. Speaking at the session, Minister of Trade and Industry, Engineer Ahmed Samir, reviewed the global crises and their repercussions on the international stage. He also reviewed Egypt's strategy to face such repercussions, especially in the industrial field. Samir added the state needs a flexible industrial sector which is at the same time able to withstand shocks. He listed the latest measures laid out by the state to attract investment. Minister of Finance Mohammed Maid said tax measures have been automated and a number of laws were issued, including the added value. And also President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met today with ministers taking part in the 24th Forum of Gas Exporting Countries. President el-Sisi received the heads of the delegations in the new administrative capital in a meeting that was attended by Minister of Petroleum Tariq al-Mullah. During the meeting, President el-Sisi asserted the important role of this forum to enhance international and regional energy cooperation. President el-Sisi also urged all parties to exert the utmost effort in all energy fields in a bid to reach the maximum usage of natural gas resources. The head of state asserted that this effort guarantees achieving fair energy exchange and ensuring that all countries benefit from their natural resources. President el-Sisi expresses hope that all attending countries will participate in the Global Climate Conference, COP27, which will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh next November. The upcoming conference will highlight the important role of natural gas and ways of achieving balance between development and prosperity for nations and preserving the environment. These were some of the main stories making the news today, and now focusing on the Economic Conference Egypt 2022 in tonight's episode. Let's check out this report regarding President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attending the closing session today, and we'll be right back.
President Fattah al-Sisi attended on Tuesday the closing session of Egypt Economic Conference 2022, which was organized by the government in the new administrative capital for 3 days. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, along with a number of statesmen, economists, thinkers and experts, also attend the closing session of the conference, which drew up an economic roadmap for Egypt within the coming period that would increase the resilience of national economy and its competitiveness. At the end of the conference, a number of privileges were announced for exporters and industrial sector. The closing session reviewed the prominent conclusions and recommendations reached during the conference concerning the policies required to face current challenges in the Egyptian economy. Addressing the conference, President Sisi said that demarcating maritime borders in the Mediterranean and Red Seas were critical to exploiting the Zohr gas field, noting that if it were not for Zohr gas field, Egypt would be facing an electricity shortage due to the cost of gas imports estimated at $10 billion monthly. He praised recent natural gas achievements that can help Egypt achieve its development targets. The head of state said that decisive solutions and understanding from the public have been required to move ahead with drastic economic reforms in Egypt to face crises the country witnessed over the past 50 years. Sisi asserted that decision makers should take into account political, social, cultural and intellectual factors when offering a path for economic reform. President Sisi pointed out that he made the best use of the great popular support in 2015 to initiate the process of reform and construction. He went on to say that several initiatives and proposals were tabled to enhance the state's capacity, citing achievements made in the health sector. President Sisi noticed that the state benefited from the available potential to relieve poverty. President Sisi underlined the importance of finding practical solutions to the problems facing the country. The president stressed the need to restructure and organize the administrative apparatus, which will lead the process of construction and reform. He said popular reactions on bearing the cost and pressures of economic reform have always been a huge and deep concern among decision makers and security bodies. He noted that the popularity of the political leadership and government was not strong enough to form a basis for a difficult and bitter roadmap that would require long and hard years of work. Sisi described 2011 as an announcement of the death of the Egyptian state. The negative impact of protests that have continued for 3 years caused complete instability that drained at least $470 billion.
خطة واضحة ترسم طريق لاقتصاد قوي مرن تنافسي صامد في مواجهة الأزمات. في 8 سنين قدرنا نخوض التحدي لبناء الاقتصاد المصري، ولسه قادرين نتحد نتكامل نتفق لوضع رؤية للاقتصاد المصري وآليات تعزيزه وفق أفضل الممارسات الدولية. المؤتمر الاقتصادي في الفترة من 23 إلى 25 أكتوبر، فندق المأسة، العاصمة الإدارية الجديدة. خارطة طريق لاقتصاد أكثر تنافسية.
إنني وإن أتطلع إلى استقبالكم من قمة المناخ 27 التي تستضيفها مصر في شرم الشيخ
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by Dr. Batran, the ex-chair of the Telecommunications Committee in the Egyptian Parliament and the foresight expert. Dr. Batran, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure being here.
Dr. Batran, now the Egypt 2022, the economic conference concluded today. The president was keen to attend and he gave a speech. And it seems that all the sessions were focused on many different things, but mainly it was the industrial sector. But it's not just the industrial sector. They spoke about transportation, they spoke about agriculture, they spoke about energy. So how is it not just the industrial sector, it's a whole ring of connection between all these different sectors?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll start off by saying His Excellency the President kicked off the start of the conference and ended the conference. Mm-hmm. And the end of the conference, he ended it with the most important word. He said, together we can, together we will. So he said the word together, and he repeated ma'an. He repeated the word together many times. And I believe when he said together, he included, because right before the together part was talking about youth and the youth integration in the economic strategy of the country and their views and their point of views, and he even mentioned that even what they don't like, even their yelling and screaming of not accepting something. He said this, we will integrate this all to have an integrated economic and industrial, particularly industrial strategy of Egypt in the very near future. The industry is not only an agricultural industry, it's not a transportation industry, is I need to localize industrial projects and of the building of parts of the electric train, so that we can have extra support to the agricultural lines. And at the same time, we are open for business, industry and otherwise, because we are open for international companies and private sector companies to manage the transport sector in particular and other sector. He even put health on the table. He said even public health hospitals, I'm willing to put this under a private management system. So it was really the word ma'an, the word together, it was a word of the sectors of the Egyptian community, whether be it the public sector, the private sector, and international business investments. And it's all of the Egyptian people. It's the young people, and it's the people of the various sectors, the agri people, the industrial people, the health people, the education people. So he reintegrated the whole thing together.
Yes. The President also reiterated the importance of the discovery of the Zuhr gas field, how integral and fundamental it was for the Egyptian economy over the past few years. So does the energy sector come into the equation as well?
Well, the energy sector is something particularly in the neighborhood of our world today. The energy sector is a main pillar. He started off, the Zohr was not Zohr except when we delineated our sea borders on the north and on the east side. And after accepting our borders and putting the documents, the necessary documents in the United Nations, which is the accepted practice of the border practice of the world, we started having international companies excavating and looking for oil and looking for gas in our economic waters, if you will. And that was Zohr. That was Tawfiq Rabbina, God's blessing to Egypt and to its people. And that was the start of, it's not only gas and oil for the Egyptian people. It is gas and oil for the Egyptian people, and it was also mentioned by our leadership. Without Zohr, we would have been paying $2 billion a month for our gas, for just to light up Egypt, to light up the turbines or engines of the electrical grid of Egypt.
Yes.
So it saved Egypt money, but at the same time, it gave Egypt a strategic edge. And I don't want to talk politics here, it's all about economy. But the political stability that this strategic advantage gave us is enhancing the business as well. Because now we are exporting gas to Europe via Cyprus and Greece. We are exporting the electricity as well to via a different corridor as well to Saudi and to various countries of Asia. So it's giving us a stability, a strategic stability within the region, and it's giving the message to investors all over the world. We are a stable country. We managed to satisfy our own needs, our own basic needs at the beginning. We have strategic arrangements and agreements with many countries, whether they are from our European neighbors or our Eastern neighbors and African neighbors as well. So we're stable. We have long-term agreements, and so we are ready to do business. And we have done business. We have done business with INI in the Zohr, like you mentioned, in the Zohr project. And now we are ready to do, and we've done well. We pay our dues. We're stable. Payments are done. The projects is being, nothing is hindering. All the government structures and branches are aligning together to push business forward, to push the project of Egypt's future forward, to the project of gas, the project of electricity. You know, we kicked off our 2014 phase by having only 20,000 megawatt of electricity.
Yes.
Now we have 56. So you're talking about a real disruptive change towards stability of our needs, strategic advantage, and export, and thus also foreign currency coming in.
Yes. Well, Dr. Batran, now Egypt has been going through its economic reform program for a few years, but this conference, Egypt 2022, has actually been called upon by the President in September to follow up on the economic reform program and to deal with the current global economic crises taking place all over the world. Part of it because of the COVID-19 pandemic, part of it because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, with these crises appearing on the grid, do we have to change a lot from our own economic reform program? Do we have to adapt? Is it going to slow our program for a bit? Do these complications or obstacles, can they actually work in our favor directly or indirectly?
Well, I always think that challenges are there to make you more focused. So on a positive sense, yes, I do believe that they were, namely this conference. We have an a global economic crisis, so we are having a conference to keep us anchored on the ground, to keep us focused on our targets, and to keep us, we will write or arrange and accommodate with any issue and situation that's arising along the way. So it's an on-the-job kind of enhancement, if you will. And we are part. We have international experts talking. We have had international experts talking in the conference. We had Dr. Mohammed Al-Aryan talking about, he said, everybody will talk about the house and what's happening inside the house, namely Egypt, but I will talk about the neighborhood. And he started talking about Ukraine, about COVID, about what's happening in the world, and about the price of the dollar. So it was really what's going on around and how it affects us.
Yes.
So that was an interesting session and discussion being put on the table. So we really are affected, and our growth numbers are still high, but they are held back a little bit. But then again, we are focused.
Yes.
So this is the good side of whatever it is that's happening. But at the same time, also, we are exporting our electricity to Europe that really needs electricity. And we did not take advantage of the need. We are giving and selling by the right market numbers and the right market prices, so as not to really, we are really a country of integrity. And I believe the integrity component of our country is really being seen, and this is a good sign for business.
Yes, most definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, now the Egypt 2022 conference is important not just for Egypt, but also, as Dr. Batran mentioned, but for the whole neighborhood, if we may say so, and it lays ground for the economic reform in the future. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Drawing a roadmap for the Egyptian economy's future, which will broaden the national economy's competitiveness worldwide, the Egyptian Economic Conference 2022 came out of the political leadership understanding of the importance of laying down an economic roadmap with the participation of all parties concerned, including experts, businessmen, and political parties. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said the conference comes at a time of an international crisis that was not witnessed since the Second World War, adding that all developed and emerging economies are struggling to survive and ensure stability, that Egypt is not isolated from the world. Madbouli noted that the economic roadmap drawn up is tackling means of recovery from the short-term international crisis with solutions for some chronic problems. He reiterated that some economic opinions in the local and international media are not based on good knowledge of the real economic situation, highlighting the importance of building future solutions on correct information. The Prime Minister highlighted the importance of analyzing the outcome of two key conferences, namely the Grand Economic Conference in 1982 and the Future Egyptian Conference in 2015. He expounded that these events were held in exceptional circumstances in Egypt. The first was held after 1973 when Egypt was loaded with problems, while the second ensued major crisis in 2011 and 2013, topped by an unprecedented terrorism wave in Egypt. Madbouli reviewed the shortage of butane gas cylinders and main supply commodities during that period. He noted that the Grand Economic Conference, for which late former President Mohammed Hosni Mubarak in 1982 had focused on the economic problems and means of rectifying the economic course, in addition to laying down a development strategy. The Egyptian Economic Conference 2022 tackled the policy of state ownership to stand on the general features of the state ownership policy document, competitive neutrality, and its role in achieving sustainable development goals. In addition, and policies and measures adopted by the government to promote neutrality. It addressed opportunities and aspects for partnership with international and regional financial institutions to enable and stimulate the role of the private sector in development efforts, to reach insights on the expected role of these institutions and the appropriate mechanisms for financing projects included in the government's work plan and program. It achieved a set of objectives represented in highlighting the framework of international cooperation and development financing for the Egyptian government and its role in stimulating and strengthening the participation of the private sector in development, and identifying the various mechanisms and models for supporting the private sector in development file by multilateral, bilateral development partners, especially in green projects.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we continue our discussion with Dr. Batran. Now, after the conclusion of this conference, there were a certain set of recommendations and resolutions focusing on different industries, prioritizing them. Can we go through the main sort of recommendations we came out with as a result from this conference?
The resolution started off by talking about the industrial sector and how can we enhance the industrial sector via the removal of any hindrances, challenges meeting along the way, the removal of the importing of the primary products or primary materials that are needed. From there, they started talking about, and also from the industrial sector, is the preferential treatment of the final Egyptian product within our national projects as well. So this is as an enhancement for any local investment or international investment for a local Egyptian product at the end. That's number one. Number two, they emphasized also the prioritized the tourism sector, hotel sectors, and the enhancement of that as a main source of foreign currency coming into Egypt. They went through as well the importance of the transport sector, helping the tourism and helping the industrial and the movement of goods around the country and out of the country. So that's also something that was mentioned. A very important topic that was mentioned also is the housing sector and enhancing the housing sector for the Egyptian community and for the international community, looking into Egypt as a potential for real estate investment in the region and ultimately in the world. So this is a very important topic that was touched upon also today. My topic of choice was also information technology and communications, the importance and of localization, some integral components of the information technology sector. That's important. They mentioned and emphasized greatly the agricultural sector and all the supporting system of the agriculture sectors and the associations supporting the farmers with the knowledge and the know-how and the products and everything to enhance that. So that was also an important. The quick train for the movement of agricultural goods was definitely touched upon within.
They also mentioned establishing an economic complex for the ICT.
Exactly, the economic complex for ICT and an economical industrial complex in general, and an industrial complex for agricultural products. So it's really an integrated affair. It's not snatches here and there. I'm just trying to cover things in general. They emphasized particularly as an overall the importance of partnership with the private sector. So it's really a conference giving out very positive signs and vibes and invitations, open invitation from the president, from the prime minister, from all the ministers, giving out open invitations for the private sector, be it local or international, to come in Egypt, to come in the sector, their sector of choice, and that partnership of the private sector will be there. The recommendations ended with the monetary policy and with the pound being pegged to the dollar, or rather not only being pegged to the dollar, but being pegged to a basket of currencies and to gold as well. So this was an interesting wrap up of the recommendations. I would like to say, maybe as an own personal wrap up, I believe the last 8 years were really the building of towards something. So if we consider what happened to Egypt in the last 8 years as Egypt putting an engine together, parts of an engine together, this engine namely is the economic engine of Egypt. The last 8 years were the roads, the infrastructure, the electricity, the water, the green economy coming in. This was mentioned greatly, and there was a fantastic session about green economy, green hydrogen, and the capability of Egypt, and even the costs of the hydrogen coming out of Egypt from as being the cheapest in the world.
Yes.
So all of this is really an engine being put together and being ready for fire up, you know, like you really put, there's a small part and a big part, a wheel and everything is being put together, and we are ready for firing for the next phase, which is economic growth, prosperity, and everything that was mentioned throughout the conference. Job opportunity, job creation, youth, job creation now, job creation that has been created. The President and the Prime Minister mentioned 5 million jobs being created in Egypt the last 8 years, and that is 5 million Egyptian families having food, having their basic necessities on the table. So this is all part of the stability of Egypt. The Egyptian economy has showed resilience, has showed continuation, has showed constancy, and we are now showing we are ready to go the extra mile for the next steps of positivity, inshallah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely we are on the right track in terms of economic reform program, as Dr. Batran mentioned. Now it just needs the spark that will launch and ignite the economic machine Egypt has been working on for the past few years. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Mail Batran, the ex-chair of the Telecommunications Committee in the Egyptian Parliament and the foresight expert. Dr. Batran, always a pleasure having you with us on the show.
The pleasure is always mine.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nada International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.